Okay, I think we have only the last bit of our lectures remaining, so let's get straight to the point. And we have to basically discuss about arguments and assertions. Now, earlier we discussed about referencing, how to do in-text citations and how to do the final list of referencing and all that. And in addition to that, we also discussed about the content of a research paper, and then we discussed basics of academic writing. Now, all this writing is important because we need to convince our reader. And now the tone has to be neutral, and also things have to be conveyed in a scientific manner. But having said that, I also want to emphasize the importance of creating logical arguments. Now, if you were in my lecture, or if you have been going through my previous sessions that I have recorded, I have emphasized the importance of creating cogent arguments. Now, what exactly is an argument and what exactly is an assertion? An assertion is something that you say. For example, you could find these things even in literature as well. For example, let's say you find some literature where it says, Sri Lankans do not demonstrate good leadership skills. Now, that's an assertion. Someone could have actually cited that in one of their papers. Despite that citation, you still haven't given any reason in your paper for me to believe what you have just said. Now, for example, you say that Sri Lankans don't have the required leadership skills. Now, where did you find it? You found that from some paper, and you have just cited that in your writing piece. Now, that is good because you have given some credit, you have acknowledged who said it, and then you have taken something that someone else has said. It has some weight, but still, should I believe it? That's the question that you should always ask. If I just write something that someone else has said, am I giving a reason for the other person to believe what I am saying, right? So when you don't do that, it would just become an assertion. For example, I am saying abortion is immoral. Now, yes, it is immoral, but at the same time, one could say it is moral as well. That is why in certain countries you can do that, and that is why in certain countries you can't do that, right? But now, considering it moral or immoral is based upon how you reason it. For example, now I personally believe that to be immoral, right? And I personally believe that because if someone asks that from me, then I can reason about it. For example, taking the life of someone is not good, regardless of the degree of aliveness. Still, I don't think it is the right option to do. That is my personal belief. But then no one is interested in learning about what I think. People want to get convinced. The scientific community or the people in your field, they need to get convinced of something. So to do that convincing part, we need to make sure that we give reasons, right? And that is when arguments come. An argument is pretty much, a conclusion with a set of premises. Premises are the reasons. So if the reasons are correct, you can come to a conclusion. For example, think like this. All basketball students eat pizzas. James is a basketball student, right? So all students eat pizza. James is a basketball student, right? Or he's a student who plays basketball. So since all basketball players or students eat pizza, we can say James also eat pizza. So James eating pizza is my conclusion, okay? And I have come to that conclusion because all the students eat pizza and James also is a student. And because of that, I am coming to this conclusion on my own based on those two sentences. Now, those two sentences are what we call premises. And the conclusion that I made out of it is my own conclusion. That is my reasoning. Based on evidence, I am making a reason. Yeah? I am the one who reasons here. Now, that is exactly what you need to do as well. South Asian student leadership. Now, students have language difficulties. they think that it is difficult to speak to others, especially domestic American students. And they are also seldom encouraged by teachers, and they often feel culture shock. Now, here's about 3 reasons. And based on these 3 reasons, I am thinking, or I am reasoning, or I have come to the conclusion that it might be difficult for South Asian students to pursue any positions related to leadership in campuses. The reason why I am saying this is because of the premises that I have come up earlier, right? So this is exactly what I am meaning when I am saying an argument and an assertion. Now, if you remember clearly, if you just go through our previous paper, let me see whether I could get it from here. Can you remember we discussed about a problem, right? We discussed about a small problem, the problem of statement in that Word document that I have uploaded. Yeah, 1.1. Here I have said, South Asian students do not have the required self-efficacy to become leaders. Now, if I just put it right there, that would be just a what? That would be an assertion, okay? But then I don't want assertions in my research paper. I want solid reasons. I need solid conclusions. So Asian students struggle with English language. That's one of the reasons, right? That's my premise one. They have problems mingling with domestic students. That's my premise two. And most Asian students do not view themselves as leaders. That is my premise 3. And because of that, I am saying South Asian students do not have the required self-efficacy to become leaders. Now, that is exactly how you do a proper argument. Now, here's something that you need to know. If your premises are wrong, your conclusion would suffer. Then that means your conclusion is wrong. Let me tell you something. All men are mortal, which means all men could die. Aristotle is a man, so therefore Aristotle is mortal. Now, Aristotle is mortal because every man is mortal, that is true. And Aristotle is a man, that is also true, right? Because of that, Aristotle is mortal. But what if someone says something like this? Humans are immortal, Aristotle is a man, because of that Aristotle is immortal. Now you see, Aristotle of course is not immortal, that's one thing. So your conclusion is wrong. Your conclusion is wrong because you have come up with 2 premises that are wrong. All mathematics teachers are 7 foot tall. Mr. Naren is a mathematics teacher, therefore Mr. Naren is 7 foot tall. That's a good argument. It is just that the argument is wrong, okay? So that's the thing. So when you come up with reasons, make sure everything that you write, everything that you say, everything that you want to establish is given adequate evidence. So without evidence, no one is going to accept anything that we are going to say. So giving evidence is the most important thing that you need to have here. So if you don't have that, if you don't, then your writing becomes very descriptive. At this level, we don't need to be descriptive. Yeah, we need to be analytical. Yeah, and don't explain from one paper to another when you explain something. Don't say that this paper said something like this, and then you explain that paper and then go to the other paper. Don't do that. You get information from one paper, another from another paper, another from another paper, and then you put this information together to develop an argument. That is exactly how you do this, okay? And that is something that you have to keep in mind as we keep on improving our academic writing skills, okay? Now, having said that, let me quickly, go through rest of our material here. Now, when you do arguments, once again, there are 2 ways of doing that. The first one is induction, or what we call inductive method. The other one is deductive, or deduction. Science usually goes with deduction. Anything other than science usually use induction. So, in terms of research, now we discuss about 3 basic research methods: quantitative, qualitative, and mixed. Okay. quantitative research is primarily done through deduction. Qualitative we do through induction. Now let me tell the difference of induction and deduction. Okay. In induction, what happens is you start with a few observations and then you build up that to form a theory. Okay. So if you take it like a funnel, in induction it starts with a few observations and then you build it until you get a proper theory. That's what you do in induction. So last year I did a research on leadership of students. So what I did was I did a qualitative study where I took 10 students and then I interviewed them because I wanted to know about things that they think in terms of the demonstration of leadership in campuses. Like I just got their personal experiences. So all 10 of them gave their experiences. Based on those experiences, I found a set of common themes and then I put them together with the theory of self-efficacy and then student involvement theory and cognitive distortions, and then I made a final theory on my own saying this might be the reason why these students do not go for leadership. And now this method, if you want to know about how scientific this method is, that is a whole different argument for another day. But you get my point, right? I just started with few student experiences and then I build it up, right? So you keep on adding things. Deduction is different because deduction, you don't start from here and go up, you start from up and then you keep on cutting things down, okay? Now for example like this, let's say you want to find about productivity in an organization. What are the reasons that a person could be, what reasons could make a person productive, right? There could be a whole lot of reasons. If you use the induction, then you would be interviewing people and then you take a qualitative approach and you make a theory of your own. But now what we do here in deduction is that we already have a set of theories. There could be organizational citizenship behaviors that are associated with productivity, maybe work-life balance, and so on and so on. There could be lots of factors that already are in the play, where others have done research and they have documented in literature. So we keep on reading them until we find a certain knowledge gap, and then what we do is we try to cut it down and we want to make it as simple as possible until we get a few workable variables. Okay, for example, I can reason that there have been lots of research about productivity, but there is not an adequate number of research on organizational citizenship behaviors in the IT industry and how it actually affects the productivity of IT professionals. So likewise, IT professionals, productivity and organizational citizenship behaviors are three variables that I have here to make sure that I have just three variables that I'm going to work on. Just three variables. Now it's just three variables, guys. Now in the qualitative research that we do, we have a few variables, but then I don't know whether it's correct to say those variables, but then we have a few constructs, and with the constructs we keep on developing our theory. Whereas here we start with theory, we cut it down to a few variables, and then we want to find whether there are some relationships between these variables, which we collect data and then we prove using statistics. So that is the main difference between induction and deduction. And there's a whole lot of other philosophical underpinnings in these kinds of research methodologies and also induction and deduction. But one thing that you have to be clear is that if you do an academic piece of writing, it's always important to have an argument. So at this point, I don't think you need to really have that differentiation that I will be doing on the induction and I will be doing on the deduction. So we don't need to have that distinction. But what I'm suggesting is that you can, of course, think about how to, incorporate both of these argumentation techniques in your study. So that is something that you should definitely do. And let's see, further discuss on how to come up with the proper argument. Now, Now let me, share my screen here, so you should be able to, find more information about how this arguments, takes place. Here we have a very small argument. Here it says, however, it is unclear how differences in ethnicity and culture generate a negative impact on one's efficaciousness to lead, right? What makes the problem worse is the lack of research on student leadership. Now, who says the leadership is not enough? Gwen 15, Gwen 16, and Colombo 2014. Now, if you remember correctly, this guy should come here because all in-text citations need to be chronologically ordered, right? Further, Asia is an enormous continent with 48 countries. Gwen 2015, Amino Carter-Jones 2000, Barron 2005, and Dugan, Commuse, and Sager 2008 are the primary research that reports Asians on lower level of leadership efficacy. Therefore, generalizing these findings to the entire Asian continent is problematic. Now, if I just said this, generalizing these findings to the entire Asian continent is problematic, someone might believe, but most of you might not believe. But now here, I have given enough reasons before this for you to believe what I am saying here, right? So these are my premises. Based on these premises, I have come to a conclusion, and the word therefore indicates that I am giving a conclusion. So this is how we use these keywords. Words like however, right? And then further, right? And yeah. So those things are actually premise indicators. So I am giving a premise. Based on a set of premises, I am coming up with the conclusion. Okay. So adding up to that same argument, I am saying furthermore, now once again, premise indicator. South Asian representation in leadership self-efficacy research studies is minimal and is often problematic to consider Asia as a homogeneous group. Most of the research on Asian students are in dissertations, okay? And because of that, I am saying it is difficult to generalize findings of a few studies to the entire continent of Asia, as it houses 60% of the world's population. Now see guys, here once again I did the same thing. I got some information and then I added them up so that I could come up with the final conclusion. Now here's how the basic deductive argumentation works. So you have a set of premises. If your premises are correct and valid, your conclusion would be valid as well. So premise 1, empirically proven knowledge. So empirically means, what is empiric research? Research that you have conducted, getting you have obtained data from people and all, and then this has derived from the word empiricism, which means that learning things based on like our experiences. So science is a combination of reasoning and experiencing, or seeing things, because science always has 3 things that needs to be there for scientific methods: testability, refutability, and being able to demonstrate. Yeah, being able to demonstrate, being able to test, and then being able to refute. So if you want to test and if you want to show it to someone, then it has to be empiric, right? So empirically proven knowledge has to be material that you will be putting in your premises. So saying that South Asian students do not have leadership, so that has to be supported with other research findings, which would be your premises. Now in the previous example here, what makes the problem worse is lack of research on, South Asian students is a premise, and these are empiric information, these are research that we are citing. And Asia is an enormous continent with 48 countries, and Gwen, Amino, and these guys are the ones who have done the primary research. So because of that, we are saying it is difficult to generalize these findings, right? And further, see, one of the other problems is considering all Asians to be a homogeneous group. Again, the research has said that, and most of the findings are in dissertations, which was again reported in other research. So because of that, again, we are saying that it's difficult to generalize. So premise, you get to a conclusion. So you derive at the conclusion rationally through the information that you have given in premises. So this exactly is what we call rationalism itself. So as I said, science is a combination of rationalism and empiricism. So empirically obtain knowledge, we put them together and make an argument so that we reason. So reasoning is what we basically call being rational, right? Rationalism is all about reasoning. But reasoning alone is not enough, so that is why we need to have empirically proven knowledge, so that when you combine both of them, then your theories are effective. So here's an example. Premise 1, it says A is a component of XYZ theory, B is a component of JHK theory, C resembles JHK theory, and A has a relationship with C, therefore I conclude that A should have something to do with B, right? Because B is a component of JHK theory and C resembles JHK theory, and A already has something to do with C, right? Because of that I am saying, okay, then A should have something to do with B as well, right? So this is what we do in deductive argumentation. So again, theoretical framework through rational argumentation. X is related to Z, Z resembles L, thus I assume X has something to do with L, okay? So this is basically what I assume, and this is exactly a hypothesis as well, because that is what exactly I'm predicting right now. Okay. So this is evidence-based reasoning. Now I have an evidence-based reasoning here, but this is something. But this is not business. This is just something I came up with in one of my psych papers. But you will get the point. But this is on self-efficacy as well. See, problem statement. Consumption of tobacco products in Sri Lanka has risen in the past years. Death toll results from it is approximately 20,000 each year, right? Empirically proven knowledge. Self-efficacy has much to provide for this endeavor, so that's a neutral sentence. Now I am giving my premise 1. Self-efficacy is proven to be a factor that promotes positive health behaviors. I am giving my premise 2. Secondly, self-efficacy is a promising indicator of the sustainability and positive behavior. Conclusion, thus, by enhancing self-efficacy, smokers could be motivated to stop smoking, right? If I just say self-efficacy can make people stop smoking, people might not believe. So because of that, I have given a few premises to further demonstrate why what I am saying is true, right? Now this is exactly what we need to do. Now for you to practice, I have given a set of, sentences here along with their true references, right? First it says research on South Asian student leadership are scarce. Self-efficacy has a positive influence on coping. Leadership self-efficacy help determine leaders from non-leaders. South Asian students find it difficult to connect with students due to perceived ashamedness in how their English sound. South Asian students are hardly encouraged as most teachers due to common misconceptions of viewing South Asian students as problem-free high achievers. South Asian students often feel left out and find it difficult to connect with students outside one's ethnicity. Research on international student engagement with local communities is limited. South Asian students lack confidence in leadership. Communication skills are essential for leadership. Now, try to be creative and put them together to form an argument. Now, I already have done an argument which you would see, like down below in the commentary section. Yes. I have said leadership research on South Asian students are limited. Also, the existing literature demonstrates a general low confidence among South Asian students in demonstrating leadership. This is evidence as South Asian students have often reported problems in networking with students due to perceived ashamedness in how their English sounds. Communication skills and confidence are essential for leadership. Further, research on international student engagement with local communities is limited. Therefore, it is of great importance to investigate leadership self-efficacy of South Asian students. So, I hope you get my point, what exactly I am saying here. Okay? Okay, so the last bit of the lecture, I have uploaded another video presentation on forming arguments and stating position. Now, this is based on some of the philosophy classes that I have taken earlier, so we don't need to get philosophical. But if you closely read that, it will give another set of information about how to state arguments and the step-by-step process of doing that. So, in this MSc, master level, I don't expect, I don't rather believe in taking you through all these points. So that is why I have just attached this so you could read this. But the most important thing is I have given information here on what my reasoning was when I came up with this cognitive distortions model and what I was thinking in terms of leadership, right? So just think about that, go through that, and try to understand how the argumentation has done, how this particular theory is put into place, how rationally we have said that cognitive distortions has something to do with leadership. So I wrote a book about this, which is currently under publication. So as soon as that is done, I should be able to give the book to you for, in case if you are interested in reading. But other than that, if you want to just get a quick understanding of how these concepts work, then this presentation will actually help you to, understand further on what exactly I'm saying here. Okay. Now, I think having said that, we have just completed our first academic writing session, and similarly, I will be meeting you again towards the end of your course with research methodology as well, which I would like to. Research methodology, of course, is my expert area, and that is what I have been teaching for the last 5 years. So we can, of course, start to do them as well. And I think, if I'm mistaken, I will be doing one module in the MBA as well, leading change, and a few other lecturers would be taking other classes. So you will meet them as we approach our classes, right? So having said that, I wish you all the best with your work, and remember guys, the deadline is 20th, and your submission has to be done before 20th for that to be graded, right? And those who successfully score 40 or above for this assignment will receive a certificate for their academic writing. Okay, that's a value-added service that we provide from our end. Now, having said that, if you do have any questions or concerns, always feel free to drop a message. And you know my email, that is director@southerninstitute.net. And if you have any other concerns related to any other administrative work, always feel free to contact our administration. You can drop a message to operations@southerninstitute.net. And remember, we are here to help you and to guide you through this program. And I hope we have so far done a good job in terms of delivering these things for all of you. And as I always tell, if you have questions, always feel free to reach me. Okay. Now, having said that, let me depart from here. So bye bye, and I'll see you again in a similar lecture.